Welcome to CUNY TV Presents. My name is Eugenia Paulicelli, professor in the Film and Media Cultures program at the CUNY Graduate Center and the founder of Italian Cinema CUNY. Our mission is to showcase Italian cinema from a transnational perspective, engaging our local communities with films from around the world. Today, we are diving into the fascinating world of Francesco Misiano, an influential Italian figure in the film industry in Moscow during the 1920s and the 1930s. To help us explore his work, I'm joined in the studio by two outstanding film scholars, experts in Italian and Soviet cinema, Demetrio Iannone and Victoria Paraniuk. I let them introduce themselves. Victoria, to you.
Thank you, Eugenia. It's great to be here. I am Victoria. I am a film scholar and a video essayist. My work revolves primarily around questions of embodiment, gender, style, and history. And I focus mostly on Soviet cinema and Eastern European cinema and visual culture.
Thank you, Victoria. Over to you, Demetrio.
Thank you to Professor Paulicelli and thank you to Victoria and CUNY TV for hosting us. My name is Demetrio Iannone. I'm originally from Crotone, Calabria, and I am a PhD student here at the Graduate Center. My actual field of interest is Italian history, Italian fascism, and Italian Americans in the United States and the influence that the ideology had on them. But through the figure of Francesco Misiano, which I came to know a couple of years ago, I got really interested in Soviet cinema and Italian influences in that, and the two connections between the two worlds. And I'm very honored to be here, and I thank you for hosting us.
Thank you so much, Victoria and Demetrio, for being here to celebrate the life and work of Francesco Misiano. Francesco Misiano left Italy in 1921 after being persecuted by the fascist repression and squads and produced influential films so crucial for the global history of cinema. In today's show, we will talk about the relationship between Francesco Misiano and the Soviet film industry against the background of the political reality of the late 1920s to early 1930s. We'll talk about the rise of the Mezhrabon film studios, one of the most prolific of the time. I want to thank Eugenio Attanasio, president of the Calabria Cinematheque, for permitting us to show the 2005 documentary, The Misiano Case, reconstructing Francesco Misiano's life and career. Attanasio co-directed the film with Giovanni Scarfò, produced by the Calabria Cinematheque. The film contains interviews with prominent film scholars like Giovanni Spagnoletti and historians like Claudio Natoli, as well as the grandnephew of Misiano, Alessandro, and one of his friends, Bruno Grieco. So let's watch a video Dr. Attanasio sent us.
Buonasera, sono Eugenio Attanasio, il presidente della Cineteca della Calabria dall'Italia, e vi ringrazio dell'opportunità concessa di parlare della figura di Francesco Misiano e del lavoro che abbiamo fatto in questi anni per recuperarne la memoria e incentivarne gli studi. Misiano fu un grande protagonista della storia del cinema sovietico attraverso la Mezhrabon, che produsse i film dei più importanti registi russi degli anni 20 e 30 del Novecento, distribuendo in Occidente questi grandi capolavori. Un primo lavoro importante della Cineteca fu la realizzazione del documentario Il caso Misiano, un'opera che raccoglie testimonianze importanti come quelle di Bruno Grieco, Giovanni Spagnoletti e Claudio Natoli. A suggello ora di queste nostre ricerche nasce il volume Francesco Misiano Cinema e Rivoluzione, opere letterarie, avventure di celluloide, nel quale sono pubblicate le opere scritte da Misiano durante il soggiorno in Svizzera e che, in occasione dei 140 anni dalla nascita, sarà tradotto in inglese e presentato al pubblico americano presso la CUNY in autunno. Buona visione.
Chi era veramente veramente Francesco Misiano, l'uomo che nel 1926 portò a Mosca Douglas Fairbanks Jr. e Mary Pickford per promuovere le industrie cinematografiche sovietiche e la casa di produzione di cui era presidente, la Mejrabum. Condannato per diserzione nel dicembre del 1921, fuggì dall'Italia dopo aver partecipato nel gennaio del medesimo anno alla fondazione del Partito Comunista durante il congresso di Livorno. Definito da Gabriele D'Annunzio vilissimo e traditore, risultò inviso e scomodo anche ai suoi stessi compagni di partito, che nel 1930 ne chiesero addirittura l'espulsione. Ma senza la sua intelligenza, la sua capacità e la sua tenacia, non si sarebbe potuta aprire quella grande stagione del cinema russo di cui furono protagonisti registi come Pudovkin, Ek, Protazanov e lo stesso Eisenstein. La corazzata Potiomkin varcò i confini dell'Unione Sovietica grazie al lavoro di distribuzione delle società fondate da Misiano. Deputato socialista e poi comunista, sovversivo e pacifista, ma soprattutto uomo libero, Misiano fu testimone e protagonista della storia e della cultura del Novecento europeo.
Demetrio, can you tell us something about the life of Francesco Misiano and how did he arrive in Moscow?
Well, you anticipated that Misiano was an Italian politician. In fact, through his figure, we get to three major histories that are important for the world. The first, the Italian political history, then the history of the Communist international struggle, and then the history of cinematic production in a transnational level. He was born in Calabria, so he's a compaesano, how you might say in Italian, but he grew up politically in Naples, where he organized the workers in the railways with Amadeo Bordiga. Then he was a deserter because he actually organized workers in an anti-interventionist struggle in World War I. For that, he had to escape Italy the first time, and he went to Switzerland. In Switzerland, that's a hotbed, a meeting point for all the deserters and those who organized anti-intervention. And he met someone called Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov, known as Lenin. He grew as a communist in Switzerland. And there he actually was the one who brought the letter of Lenin back to Italy, ordering the split with the socialists, to the creation of the Communist Party in Livorno in 1921. But before that, actually, he went to Berlin. So he's an internationalist in the true sense. Because in Berlin, there was a revolution, the Spartacist revolution. In fact, Misiano did desert the nationalist war, but he didn't desert his war, which was the classist, the class struggle. And in Berlin, he fought and risked his life defending the Vorwärts building, the building of the Socialist Forward newspaper, the equivalent of the Avanti. There he established this private organization that was responding to Lenin's call in 1921 to have aid sent to the Volga regions for the people who were suffering a famine during the civil war in Russia. So that's how it started. It's a private organization that was started, and then he united it with the film studio Rus by Messier Elienikov in 1923, and he created the Mejapom Rus. The Mejapom is the Russian equivalent of Vir, Международные рабочие помочь, and the Rus. So this is the birth comes from a private organization.
Il 1 agosto del 1924 viene fondata la Mejrabum Rus con un accordo tra la Mejrabum, corrispondente a Soccorso Operaio Internazionale, rappresentata proprio da Misiano, e il collettivo artistico Rus, in persona del regista Yuli Zhelyabunshky. La Mejrabum Rus, definita poi la Hollywood russa, segue una linea artistica di grande equilibrio tra divertimento e propaganda, con varietà di generi, raggiungendo anche un grande successo economico. Nel 1927, infatti, tocca l'apice della produzione con 300 persone impiegate e 300.000 metri di pellicola lavorata ogni mese. In questi anni d'oro produce oltre 200 film, scritturando i più grandi registi sovietici del tempo.
Victoria, can you talk about the environment, the culture and political environment in Moscow when Misiano arrived?
Sure. Yeah, very interesting history. Misiano's struggle before he arrives in Moscow. When he comes, the country is undergoing kind of rebuilding and organizing a new life after the two revolutions of 1917, and also, of course, the prolonged civil war that followed the revolutions, right? And so when Misiano arrives, the Soviet Union is what is known as under the New Economic Policy, or NEP, which was established by Lenin and his government in response to a dire economic situation. And what it means is that the country is under a mixed market economy, with the government controlling banks, foreign trade, and heavy industry, but in fact encouraging a wide variety of private enterprise. So Mezhrapom Rus, or Mezhrapom Film, as it became known later, is one of those private enterprises. What is also interesting at this moment is that if you look at listings, theater listings, movie theater listings in Moscow and, let's say, Petrograd, which was St. Petersburg at the time, you see how many foreign films are being played on Soviet screens at the time. If you look at the program, you see stars such as Buster Keaton, Mary Pickford, Douglas Fairbanks, Conrad Veidt, Paolo Negri, who are very well familiar and beloved by the Soviet movie-going public at the time. So this is kind of the context.
This is fascinating because it really gives us a perspective on the film industry, reflecting Mezhrapom Film diverse output in the course of the almost 10 years of existence. So then I would like to ask Vika, why are these films important?
Right, right. So Mezhrapom Film was a studio that produced, as you mentioned, a variety of films. And in fact, they were very heavily criticized quite often by the press, especially later in the 1920s and early 30s as the political climate changes, for being too beholden to commercial fare, right, making genre films. But they also produced politically oriented films. So they were just really, again, making all kinds of movies for the Soviets and also for export, and kind of being, representing the Soviet film industry abroad as well. But so the films that we selected, again, regrettably, we can't fit more in our program. But Aelita, one of the films that our viewers will see, is a really fantastic film. It's probably the first Soviet science fiction film, definitely not the first science fiction film. So two people I would like to highlight especially is the costume designer, Alexandra Ekster, who was a multi-talented person. She was a painter, graphic artist, and a in theater costume designer. So this is quite incredible. You will see The Martians, spoiler alert. The story takes place both on planet Earth, but Mars, so the costumes of the Martians are quite incredible, right? And another person that I would like to highlight is Isaac Rabinovich, who was a former pupil of Ekster, and he revolutionized the stage at the time, so he was a stage designer in the very conservative Moscow Art Theater. So he was invited to create the incredible stage design for the film.
Del 1924 è Aelita di Yakov Protasanov, il primo film di fantascienza russo tratto da un racconto di Alexei Tolstoi. Si racconta la storia dell'amore di una principessa marziana, Aelita, per un giovane viaggiatore spaziale, sugli affascinanti sfondi della scenografia costruttivista.
A Kiss from Mary Pickford is a very different film from Aelita. It's a romantic comedy. It's kind of, I would say, a lighthearted commentary on celebrity culture, on the obsession with movies and movie stars.
Absolutely.
So as I already mentioned, the Soviet audiences were very familiar with Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks. And when the Hollywood couple visited Moscow in 1926, they also visited the studios at Mezhrabom Rus, or Mezhrabom Film as it was known at the time. And Sergei Komarov, who was a director and an actor working at the studio, took advantage of the visit and filmed them.
Right.
And so what he does in this film, which is really clever, he incorporates the documentary footage of the Hollywood royalty into a completely fictional story. And another thing that I wanted to mention about this film is that the main character is played by a comedy actor, Igor Ilinsky, who goes on to have a very long career in Soviet cinema,
And
primarily known as a comedy
He's actually
actor.
kissed by Mary
And
Pickford.
he's the one, that's right, he's the one who gets a kiss implanted and a complete chaos ensues.
E poi basta vedere Il bacio di Mary, ossia come Douglas Fairbanks e Mary Pickford vengono accolti dalla popolazione di Mosca all'arrivo del treno nella stazione. È una cosa incredibile, è un mare di gente che va lì, tutta Mosca che è andata lì ad accoglierli, perché i due erano famosissimi in Russia nel periodo appunto della NEP. Io credo di aver visto in quel periodo alcuni film di Mary Pickford e Douglas Fairbanks proprio a Mosca. Poi siccome mia madre li amava molto, me li aveva fatti vedere da 2 o 3 anni di età qui a Roma, per cui ho ancora delle immagini di quei film, insomma. E Douglas Fairbanks e Mary Pickford erano famosissimi là. Quindi per questo Misiano è molto felice di essere riuscita in questa impresa di farli venire a Mosca e di accoglierli lui.
Let's go back now to Victoria and talk about the film Road to Life, a first sound film, a very important film, 1931. Can you talk about it?
Sure. So just a few words about the 1930s, right? It's kind of a very different moment when Stalin does come to power in the late 1920s. Also, we have the first 5-year plan that is underway that begins in 1928. And the Soviet film industry is, as a whole, kind of working towards a conversion to sound a little bit later than, let's say, the United States. And it was always kind of this competition with the United States, right? May not be, it's always hard to with first, it may not be the very first sound feature film, Soviet feature film, but it's certainly one of the first. And so Road to Life is one of the first, right? One of the first feature films.
Yes.
And also thematically, it's a little bit different, right? It's more politically kind of oriented. It's about a re-education of young people, right? So we thematically, we're also, and beggars, right? Sort of orphans, beggars. So we're in a very different, so if you look at the 1920s, low life.
В бывшем монастыре в одном устраиваю я фабрику коммуны. Поедем со мной, кто хочет. Ладно. Валим свою коммуну.
Ну, ребятки, пошли. Пошли? Ну что же вы, ребята? Ну?
А конвой где?
Конвоя не будет. Вы добровольно.
Continuing this conversation about The Road to Life, I would like to ask Demetrio, because that film has a very strong connection with Italy, and actually fascist Italy, because the Venice Film Festival, the international film festival that still exists today, was in fact initiated during the fascist dictatorship in Italy, and 1932 is the first year, and The Road to Life played a major role. So he received glowing reviews by many critics, and then also a prize. Demetrio, can you talk to us a little bit about that? I mean, the relationship also with, this film presented at the festival, but also the reputation and the relationship between, fascist Italy and the two industries.
Absolutely. So the victory of Nikolai X, The Road to Life, is significant for two reasons. First of all, it shows the ability to create meaningful and impactful art in a very limiting environment like the Stalinist one. Usually, one might think of a Stalinist period of socialist realism as a kind of a medieval ages for arts. Road to Life and the activity of people like Misiano and the Mejapomme film shows that working within certain limits can actually stimulate artistic production. And The Road to Life is a breakthrough in that.
What was the attraction for fascist Italy, for this film? What was the major
I think it's the
attraction?
Technical side of the film. It's the prelude to neorealism. In the films like X, like Pudovkin, under some respects under Eisenstein, right? You had what would become the base for the future neorealists. And the neorealists formed during fascist times, so it is no wonder that people...
Alessandro Blasetti, in fact, was an admirer of the Soviet cinema, because they were able to see all these films in Italy in clubs. And
the same, this actually went through the censorship, actually. And they arrived to people also like Luchino Visconti. Visconti said that X movie was, upholded by his generation, as an example.
Con il sostegno diretto del Soccorso Operaio Internazionale, Misiano affronta un progetto cinematografico ambizioso, il primo film sonoro della storia del cinema sovietico col regista Nikolai Ek, formatosi presso il teatro sperimentale di Meherkold. Presentato alla prima mostra del cinema di Venezia nel 1932, ottenne un incontrastato riconoscimento della critica che gli valse il premio alla migliore regia. Racconta la storia del maestro Sergeyev che, subito dopo la rivoluzione d'ottobre, raccoglie orfani e ragazzi di strada educandoli agli ideali del comunismo. Il successo fu enorme, anche economico, e per la prima volta sullo schermo risuonavano le note dell'Internazionale.
Thank you. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you to our incredible guests for such an engaging conversation, and for CUNY TV for providing a platform to expand the appreciation of Italian filmmakers and their influence on world cinema. I hope everyone at home enjoyed today's discussion. Help us spread the word about Italian Cinema CUNY by following us on social media. Enjoy the films that follow, and we look forward to seeing you next time on CUNY TV Presents. Grazie e arrivederci.